When an object is transformed, that is, moved, rotated, or scaled, it needs to be transformed relative to some point of reference. When you move something, are you moving it relative to the world grid, or are you moving it relative to the selected object itself? We can choose a reference coordinate system from this pull-down list on the main toolbar. And we have a bunch of options. We're not going to cover all of them, just the most important ones. The reference coordinate system is sticky for each one of the three transform tools of move, rotate, and scale. So for example, if you choose a reference coordinate system for the move tool, by default that will not affect the coordinate system for rotate. They're independent of one another unless you change that behavior in the preferences. The default coordinate system is view. Choose the move tool and select some object to display the move gizmo. In the top view, the move gizmo is aligned with the axis tripod we see in the lower left corner of the viewport. That tripod indicates the orientation of the world grid and the world axes. If I move this chair in the x-axis of the move transform gizmo, I'm moving it in the x-axis of the world. Likewise, if I move it in the y-axis of the gizmo, I'm moving it in the y-axis of the world. But it's not the same if we go over to, for example, the front view. I'll right-click in that view to give it focus without losing my selection. Over here we see that once again, the y-axis of the gizmo is pointing to the top of the screen, and the x-axis of the gizmo is pointing to the right, but that does not align with the world coordinate axes. In the front view, moving an object towards the top of the screen actually moves it up in world Z or Z. Okay, I'll undo that. And again, if we right-click in the front view to give that view focus without losing the selection, the y-axis still points up, and the x-axis still points to screen right. And this tells us that the view coordinate system is in the space of the viewport itself. And that's fine for an orthographic view, but in the perspective view, we don't necessarily want to move in screen space. We usually want to move in world space. If I go over to that perspective view and right-click in there so I don't lose my selection, I see that the move gizmo here is aligned with the world axes. In a perspective view, when we click on the move x-axis and drag, we're moving in world x. And if we click on the gizmo's y-axis, we're moving in world Y. The view coordinate system operates in screen space in the ortho views, and it operates in world space in the perspective view. If for some reason you do want to move in screen space in a perspective or a camera view, you can switch the move tool over to screen coordinates. And now if I click on the x-axis of the move gizmo in the perspective view and drag, I'm not moving in world X any longer. And we can see in the top viewport, we're actually moving in both X and Y. We're moving in a diagonal. Well, I don't usually use that screen coordinate system, but it might come in handy in some camera-centric situations. One coordinate system that you'll tend to use a lot with the move tool is local. Switch this over to local coordinates, and that's the space of the object itself. In the case of this chair, it's the space of a group. The group is rotated so that it's not orthogonal to the world or aligned with the home grid, and we can easily see that the local coordinate system is not aligned with the world. It's aligned with the selection. Local mode is really useful if you want to move something in its own space, for example, towards or away from something. One thing that's not immediately obvious is that local mode is kind of a fake temporary coordinate system. If we animate an object position in local space, we may get unexpected results. For example, if I animate this chair moving in the local y-axis, what I would find is that I'm actually animating in world X and Y, because the object has no parent. We'll talk more about parenting or linking later. For now, just be aware that local mode is useful for modeling operations, but if you're going to be animating, you'll need to look a little bit deeper. And one thing that kind of indicates that is that in local mode, we see 0 values for all of the transforms here. And clearly, the object is not at the origin, it's somewhere else. And these values are not world coordinates. The local coordinates show the position of the object relative to itself. Those are a few of the key reference coordinate systems that are useful with the Move tool.